Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Pat Taylor, and she is with our Pathways Counseling Program, and she's going to discuss our emotional well-being piece today. That is the ups and downs when it comes to your parents moving in and taking on those roles that once were that they cared for you and now you're caring for them. So she's going to talk about that emotional stress that might happen when those roles are reversed. So thank you all for coming today. We have a survey at the end of this. If y'all didn't grab a flyer, let me know and I'll pass it out to you. But please, please, please fill that survey out. Not only just how our lovely presenter does today, but also any ideas of emotional well-being that you could think that would be a good topic to discuss, because we read these in the committee and that's how we form next year's classes based on what y'all's needs are. So I appreciate any feedback that y'all give. All right, we'll turn it over to Miss Pat.
It is a joy for me to be here this morning, and I feel like I've walked in your shoes over the years.
Just.
It's a joy for me to be here to present to you today, and I feel like I've walked in your shoes. In the year of 2000, one Wednesday night, I went to pick up my father, who at the time was about 80. I went to pick him up for Bible study, which I often did with a friend. And when I got to the door, I noticed that he had a little gun in his pocket. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you had a gun. So anyway, he began to tell me how the neighbors were bothering him and that he had gotten it for his protection. So I hadn't really planned this, but that night I said, okay, Dad, let's get some clothes and you want to come spend the night with me. And he did, and he was at my house up until he went to a nursing home about 3 months before he died. So I had the joy of my dad living with me for 6 years, for the last 6 years of his life. So I feel like I can identify with you with the ups and downs that you go through in terms of having a parent live with you. I want to just cover four basic things with our presentation today. One, sometimes it's helpful to go back and say, how did we get to where we are today? And with that, we're going to look at how shifts in the aging population have actually impacted caregiving. We're going to be able to identify and assess both your needs as the adult child and the adult parent, what their needs are. We're going to look at some of the causes and symptoms of burnout. And lastly, we're going to talk about some coping skills for your well-being. And one of the things I went to an in-service that I recently learned that I like, it says catch it, check it, and change it. So one of my goals for you is by the end of this in-service that you will be able to catch it, check it, and change it so that you'll be able to deal with the emotional ups and downs of caregiving. So again, catch it, check it, and change it. These are what we call population pyramids, and what this does, it helps us to look at the aging population of the United States, and you can basically look at the shape of the pyramids to help you to understand what's going on with the aging population. You may notice that, and you may not be able to see, but this age 65 to 69, let me show this to you on the board. This is where we were in year 2000, okay? And then this is where we are in the year 2015. So you can see that the shape has basically changed, and what's happened is that the aging population is actually growing. Those individuals that are age 65 and older, the baby boomers are in that population, so it's actually getting wider, and so that's actually going to change caregiving when you look at it. And you can look at population pyramids even years back, and you can see that the top is very small, but now the top is kind of widening out, and still we have the millennials there, kind of in the middle. They are. Baby boomers for a long time were the largest population, but now the millennials are the largest population of people. So they help you to understand why we have to deal with this caregiving issue. Next, let's look at some of the demographic shifts that we've had. So just kind of stop and think about it for a moment. People age 65 and over are projected to double in the next 40 years. So if you think we have issues now, think about what's going to happen in the next 40 years. So those people age 65 and over, the population size is going to double what it is now. There, there again, now it's about 15% of the population, but it's going to be about 24% of the population. So things are going to be changing because of the aging population. There again, you may already notice there's a huge diversity between the age groups in terms of what the older generation, their beliefs, their values, and the younger generation, the millennials, Generation X, there's some changes in the values in terms of what people think and how they feel. There again, a positive thing is that you will see people more age 65 and older, you'll see them more in the workforce as opposed to early retirement. And you'll see that some people are choosing to age in place. It used to be that when you got old, if you didn't have a place to go, if you can go with your family, you go to a nursing home. But many people are choosing to what we call age in place, meaning that they stay in their homes with help. They may have somebody move in with them to help them, but people often age in place. Wow, this next piece of data is interesting. The supply of caregivers, they're not going to be able to keep up with the demand. In other words, there are going to be more people who need care than there are actually caregivers present to give care. And this data here looks at people who are in their 70s and 80s. And now it's like you have 7 to 1 in terms of the total number of people that are involved in caregiving, but it's going to be only 4 to 1 in 2030. So we hope to have more people trained and more people involved in caregiving because we're going to actually need that. Another shift is your family members. Think about it. How many siblings do you have? How many siblings do the average people around you have? Actually, families are actually smaller now, so that too is going to impact caregiving. All right? Another piece of data for the United States is because we have more immigrants that are actually moving into the United States, we have a larger number of foreign-born seniors who actually do live with a family as opposed to those in American. And that has to do with some of the values. Some of the values people may involve them taking care of their older person. In other words, there's no question of where grandmama or grandpapa's going when they get older. They're going to come and live with us. So that makes some changes. Next, let's look at some positive developments. Everything's not always negative. What are some positive things that we see in this shift with the aging population? Educational levels have increased so people can understand things a little bit better, which helps. Life expectancy has really increased. So you don't have that huge gap. In 1950, it was 68, but in 2013, the average for both males and females, pretty close to 79. And also, there's a decrease in the gender gaps. It used to be that there was a huger gap between the life expectancy of men and women. Now that gap is kind of closer a little bit, so men are not leaving us quite as early as they used to. So that gender gap is kind of closing together a little bit. Because of better improved health care. And we would like to also think because of all the health education. And there is some data that shows that males who are actually married actually tend to live a little bit longer because they have spouses who nudge them and encourage them to kind of get to the doctor and take care of some of those things. Right? And then there's been an overall decrease in the actual poverty rate. Now, with some different groups of people, it has not, but overall, the poverty rate for older Americans has actually decreased some as a whole. So those are some positive things that are happening. And there again, our purpose in going back, taking a look at this is to help us understand how we got from where we were to where we are now in terms of dealing with these issues. What are some of the opportunities? I like to call problems opportunities. What are some opportunities that we have for us to think about? Number one, we continue to battle this obesity rate, and seniors are not exempt from this. We have seniors that are also battling the obesity rate. The There again, you see the data there, 25% in 2008 to 27% in 2014. So in other words, the number of seniors who are dealing with obesity is also increasing as it is with the general population. Next thing is that even though the overall poverty rate has actually decreased, there is still some great disparities between some populations, and two of those population groups are African Americans and Hispanics. So their overall poverty rate, there's still some gaps there in terms of the poverty rate. The next thing, oh, here's a big one. There's an increased number of older people who are divorced. And so when you have the loss of a spouse or a partner due to divorce, we understand death, but divorce impacts caregiving there. And we know that marital status actually impacts our well-being, our overall well-being. So there you see the numbers increase from 3% in 1980 to a whooping 13% in 2015 in terms of the number of older Americans who are actually divorced. Other things that impact aging and caregiving: 1/4 of women ages 65 to 74 live alone, which impacts well-being. And it really increases with ages 75 to 84. 42% live by themselves, right? There again, with the increase in the population size and baby boomers, we're going to need more people to be involved in caregiving. And lastly, the opportunity we have with the increased number of people with Alzheimer's and dementia type diagnosis. All of those things are actually impacting caregiving. Now, here's some things to kind of consider when you think about caregiving and about when a parent comes to live with you. What are your family values and expectations? You know, when I was a child, I did not know that my parents were teaching and training me. On Sunday afternoons after church, my mom and dad went to visit relatives. When I was a child, we'd get in the car, we'd go to Aunt Mary's house or Uncle Albert's house. Mom would help with caregiving, and we would have dinner there. I didn't know they were teaching and training me to take care of them. So there again, my values were actually shaped by what I experienced and what I saw, right? So think about yourself. Are there certain family values and expectations that you have that actually impact your caregiving and what you think you should or ought to do? The next thing is look at the relationships, the history of the relationships with you have, and they will tell you some things. These may not be things we want to hear or think about, but when you think about the history of the relationship that you have with your parents, that's going to in fact caregiving, and if they move in with you. Personality style. We all have our personalities, don't we? You know, there are some researchers that say that there are 4 or 5 different types of personalities that people have. So knowing your personality, knowing your family member's personality is going to help you to consider whether or not they need to move in or maybe whether they need to move out. One of you may need to move out, okay? Based on your personality. You know, if you get along fine now and everything is good and you all have similar values and likes, then things may go well. But if you already know that there was conflict, that you had 2 different personality styles, 2 different types of values, then you may want to consider that before you make that decision. And you want to take into account not only the needs of the older person, but other family members' needs. And sometimes, because of those values we have, we may tend to put our needs and other family members' needs on hold while we take care of the family members. And sometimes they'll try to demand that you do that. They'll put the pressure on you in different ways. And then, on a positive note, some people are choosing to move in or have a person move in with them because of finances. They call it doubling up to save money. Okay, let's kind of look at what are some causes of some changes that we may have. And as I was doing a little bit of research, one researcher called it feeling hemmed up, feeling hemmed in. You ever feel hemmed in where you can't get out? Let's look at some of the things that may be going on there. We may have, again, those religious and spiritual values that kind of keep us hemmed up. You know, the Bible says we should blank, blank, blank. We should honor our parents. We should do this. So those spiritual and religious beliefs are actually driving what we feel and we think. And sometimes an adult may have made a deathbed promise. Well, mama, daddy, you go on now. Everything will be okay because I promise I will take care of Johnny. I will not let Johnny go to a nursing home. Right? Then sometimes we make promises in good health. Well, you know, Dad, don't worry. I'm going to always take care of you. And maybe perhaps I don't realize that 10 years down the road, Dad may have something going on with him that I physically cannot take care of. So, there again, not all promises are bad at the time. I call those good health promises. And old guilt. It will keep us strapped down, won't let us get up sometime. All right? In terms of what we actually feel. And we do and don't do certain things because of the guilt that we feel. I've already talked about those past relationships. The next emotional change is that of forgiveness. Sometimes there can be things that happened when we were children that our parents were going through. They may have had emotional issues from whatever, they may have been abused, all kinds of trauma. Forgiveness is a decision we have to make. And sometimes that may require some counseling or some extra emotional work, but we have to make a decision to forgive. And I can't tell you to forgive. And forgiving does not mean that you forget what happened, but it just means making that decision that I'm going to forgive because it's going to help me to move forward and it's going to take this concrete block out of my, I won't forget what happened, but I'm choosing to forgive for that. There again, easily said, but very difficult to do. But it is possible to work towards forgiveness. And one of the things sometimes I ask people when they're working on forgiveness, what is it that the person owes? You know, if they could write out a check and repay you for what it is you're holding them responsible for, how much would it cost? Okay? So that's a huge topic. The next one is perfectionism. That was one of mine that kind of got me in caregiving when I made the decision to put my dad in a nursing home. I thought I ought to be able to handle this. You're a social worker, you know all this. You should be able to handle this. So I had to kind of get past that. That was the thing that was keeping me hemmed up. Intergenerational needs. Sometimes you struggle between what your family members need, what your children need, what your grandchildren need, and then what that older adult needs. So you feel hemmed up because you can't handle all those needs. So that can cause emotional distress. There again, financial problems. Now, not all older adults are out of poverty. The cost of medicines, the cost of medical care, if you have somebody coming in, all those things can kind of make you feel hemmed up and cause emotional issues. Role reversals. How do you deal with mom saying, you know what, I'm your mama and you don't have any business telling me what to do? Well, I didn't have that conversation with my dad, but one of the things I tried to do was to treat him with respect, and I did a lot of, so what would you think about instead of do? Okay? So would it be all right with you so sometimes I found myself asking permission for different things to be able to kind of help deal with that role reversal. And if you have a relationship where you can have that conversation that may go something like, Dad, I know this may be difficult. I'm really feeling kind of guilty because I'm having to do some things that you did for me. So if you can have that conversation and go ahead and address that issue. My grandmother made a profound statement when I was younger, and I never thought anything about it. You know what she said? Um, Once a man, twice a child. She said that repeatedly. I don't know if anybody ever heard that. And as I dealt with my father, I thought, you know what? Grandma knew what she was talking about. Once a man, twice a child. All right? So deal with those role reversals because sometimes it has to be, and sometimes the person who needs caregiving, they don't have a role anymore. And you know what? I found a role for my dad. Dad, I really need you to fold these towels for me. I really do. You know, um, so find them something to do that helps to give them a productive role. May not be a huge role, but something that makes them feel that they have a meaning and they have a purpose. And as you said, sometimes when that purpose comes along, you can see that shift. Create something for them to do. Find something for them to do that gives them a sense of purpose. Another cause of emotional changes has to do with relocation. If you make that decision to have your family member move in with you, it's a change for you and for them. Can you imagine having to leave your home, all your prized possessions, and you can't possibly put two houses into one? And you may have to shift your belongings. So that relocation, but even sitting down and kind of talking about that, what does that look like? What can we take? What can we leave to deal with those emotions there? And lastly, we have to realize what our workload overload feels like and looks like. Okay. Next, if you haven't already made the move and you're thinking about it, I say we have to prepare. Prepare for that. And I call it an assessment. Assess what's the needs of the older person, what's the need of every family member in your home that you're dealing with. Because you know what? If all of the attention is given to grandma, then your grandchild is going to feel neglected. What are the needs of those persons? And sometimes having that conversation and having some ground rules set. And how we have those ground rules set is by trying to start the conversation early. I call them difficult conversations. And as I said, if you've already started that, you're probably a step ahead. In fact, because of my experience with caregiving, I'm already asking myself, okay, Pat, when you get to the point you're not able to live in your home alone, who is going to take care of you? So I'm already thinking about my own needs. My sister and her husband are older, and they renovated their home, and they had these steps going up to their home, and I insisted that they make some changes. My brother-in-law said, well, you've cost me $5,000 extra on these home improvements. I said, I know, but you'll be proud of that because you all are getting older. You will not always be able to get up these steps the way you're in. So complete that assessment. Set ground rules. Some things I listed there. Shared decision making. Make a decision. Who's going to make decisions? Most older people want to be able to maintain independence as long as they want to, and you should allow them. Let them decide whether or not they want to be on the ventilator. So that way you don't put that burden on yourself, and you involve them in making the decision. And you can say what you're able to do and let them see what they can do so that you don't carry that burden for them. Some things I listed there, you have to make a decision. Am I going to have hired help? Do I need respite care for the person so that I'm not always there? Can we afford to hire someone who's going to pay for it? And then what other natural supports can you use? And I want to tell you all that one of my best natural supports, I would have not predicted it. It was not my sibling, but it was a close relative who was by my side that if you had asked me that 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to identify that. But that was a natural support that came in and was always there when I could not be there for caregiving. Some symptoms of burnout. And I know I'm moving a little bit fast, but these are some symptoms, and I want you to just kind of look at that list because burnout doesn't always speak very loud and clear to us. But these are some things that we may look for when things are getting too difficult for us. And this may be even if the person is not living in your home. You may be thinking about it, or you may be having to change your routine because of the changes that they have in their own physical issue with their physical issues. Sleep patterns, you could be sleeping too much, not enough, waking up during the night, having nightmares, feeling about what you have to do and all those sorts of things. Eating patterns, weight gain, weight loss, not eating enough, not taking time to eat your meals properly. Wow, increase in substance. I made sure I just didn't put alcohol and drugs. Okay? Sugar, when we need a quick fix, sugar, caffeine, tobacco, alcohol, drugs, all those things equal to substance. Increase in the pain, such as headaches and backaches. One thing I found out is when I was stressed, and it still happens today, my back hurts when I'm more stressed. Right? Stomach problems of different kinds. irritability, being impatient with people, getting angry, agitated, and so forth. Overreaction to what people say, that feeling of being trapped. Sometimes I said, you know what? Whew, if I could just run away for a while, I'll come back. Just give me a little bit of a break. The next thing, that loss of joy, those things that used to give you joy, the things you used to enjoy, you know what? I can do them, participate in them, but I just don't feel quite the joy and the pleasure that I used to feel in doing those things. And sometimes that loss of compassion, you know what? I'm just tired. I don't care what they need. I'm just tired. I just want to. Sometimes we lose compassion, that compassion fatigue. And there again, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. So those are some things that can actually happen with burnout. Watching my time here. What can we do? And you can probably say these are some of the things that we hear all the time. What can I do when I'm having those emotional downs? One of the things we can do is to try to identify the stress we have. And one of the best ways that I have found is relaxation. And relaxation is can be done in different ways. Just stop for a moment, relax yourself. I want you just to do this for a moment for me. If you can, put both feet on the floor. Just kind of relax. You don't have to close your eyes, but I want you to do some deep, gentle breathing, where you simply breathe in through your nostrils, hold it for a moment, and then gently blow it out. Do that for a moment where you kind of breathe in, hold it, and then gently blow it out. So focusing on relaxation where you gently breathe in, hold it, blow it out. Do that several times during the day, and you may have all kinds of thoughts come through your mind about what you have to do. Don't judge them. Don't beat yourself up, but just come back to focusing on your breathing. Too often we judge every thought we have. Our mind has all kind of thoughts, but you know what? It's not necessary to judge each one of them. So focus on some relaxation and some deep breathing exercises that you can do. There are many things you can find online, many relaxation sounds. You can do that while you are at the doctor's office, you know, waiting for your parent. So practice some deep breathing and some relaxation. That will actually do wonders for you in terms of managing stress, along with the things that we always hear about managing stress. Healthy eating, movement activities, sleep. Getting restful sleep can do a wonder, but when you don't get a lot of sleep, it can impact you in many, many different ways. Identify a support network, and also try to avoid negative thinking. Sometimes negative thinking, there again, catching it, checking it, and changing it. And what that basically looks like, if you have a negative thought, don't beat yourself up. Just say, okay, I can get through with this. It's okay to be a little bit stressed, but it doesn't have to rule my every day. It's okay to take a break. So take that negative thought and change it into something positive, and that will help you. Practice your spiritual beliefs. Having a sense of purpose outside of taking care of your loved one, something that you enjoy. Don't forget to laugh a little bit. Find something humorous, a television show, so that you can be able to laugh. It does a lot. Practice gratitude. And sometimes we beat ourselves up because of what we're not doing. Well, what are you doing? Sometimes when I'm having a difficult time, I'll say I will name at least 5 things that I'm thankful for, 5 things that I am doing with that particular person, and take one day at a time. Okay? We're almost finished. Sometimes we make caregiving out to see that it's all bad, but there can be some positive ups to caregiving. You ever thought about that? It can bring you closer to your loved one, and it can sure increase your patience. People ask me all the time, say, "You are so patient," and I thought to myself, "Well, you don't know how I got here." Okay. One of the things I did with my dad, I got to work on time, and before I left for work, he was all bathed and ready to go. So I had already done a job's work before I came in to clock in. All right. So that helped me to increase my patience, and I'm thankful to say I still have much of that patience that I had in taking care of him. It helped me to be more organized. I didn't think I could get that organized, but taking care of a loved one helped me to set some priorities and to get things in order. And I had to learn to ask for help. Okay. I learned a lot about my family history while taking care of my dad. Um, Helped me to be more compassionate. And you know what I did for my birthday last September? I had my will made out. So, because of my experience with caregiving and because I knew the importance of putting a plan in place, I'm thankful to say that I've already done that. And I already have someone who will help to take care of me and they will help to get my business in order. So, not all bad. And I have copied here for you a caregiver bill of rights that will just help you to be able to know that you do have rights as a caregiver. And lastly, caregiving often calls us to learn, to lean into love we didn't know was possible. Sometimes you won't realize how much love you actually have in you. And so this caregiving is gonna stretch you a little bit, okay? But I'm going to encourage you uh, to make sure that you catch it, you check it, and you change it. All right? Thank you. Okay, that's the end. Okay. All right, and I have my sources listed. And if anybody would like a copy of this, I would be happy to get you a copy. I can send it to you. Well, she already has a copy of it. Uh-huh. This is a caregiver bill of rights. Uh-huh. Yes, uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. 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 Okay, all right. And I added one extra slide so that and Chad put that up for me. Okay? All right, thank you.